What's going on, everybody? I'm Jason, this is Tennessee Mountain Homestead, and today I'm going to show you how to change out the brake pads on a Chevy Express van. Now, this happens to be a 2016 model, but if your van looks like this and has disc brakes all the way around, then chances are this will work for you too. The first thing you're going to want to do is loosen up the lug nuts. Now, I like to do this before I even jack it up, especially on the front. But this way, you can put a lot of torque and break them free without the tire trying to spin, because if you have it jacked up first, you're going to be battling that. Now that I've loosened up all the lug nuts, I'm going to go ahead and jack this thing up until the wheel is just off the ground. That's plenty. Now that the van's jacked up and the tire's off the ground, it's a good idea to use a jack stand so that in case the jack comes down for some reason or fails, you can do this at your discretion. I'm not going to be working under this thing, and I know that jack isn't going to come down, but it's good practice, especially if you're working underneath it. All right, now that the tire's off the ground, the lug nuts are loose, and it's supported, we're gonna take these out the rest of the way. I happen to have a big impact wrench, but you don't need anything like this. You can just unscrew them with a ratchet. Now that we've got the wheel and tire off and the van is safely supported by a jack stand, what we're looking to do is remove the caliper. So there's two bolts that hold the caliper on. If you look up on top here, it's right here, and then there's one straight down below it on the bottom side. What you don't want to mess with is these bolts here that are the slide pins for the brake pads and the caliper itself. You want to leave these alone. You don't want to mess with the brake line. You don't need to unscrew that. Nothing. Just the two bolts that actually hold it on. And these happen to be 18 millimeter. And I've got an 18 millimeter 1/2 inch drive with a shallow socket. Go ahead and try to break these free. Now these are pretty tight. I've had them off before. There we go. Definitely took some juice to get that off, but it'll come off. I'm gonna get the bottom one. That's what your bolts look like right there. That was the bottom one. And the reason I'm not using the impact to get these off is because, well, you're not going to get the impact in here anyway. So, it's no big deal. Just take your time, unscrew them. Now the reason I switched to a wrench on the top one is because if I keep unscrewing it with this, it's going to back it out right into the leaf spring, and I won't be able to get it out once the bolt's loose. I think it's finger tight now, finger loose. All right, that's the other bolt. It's just two bolts. Now what you want to do is carefully remove the brake pad. Don't let this thing fall and jerk your brake line, because you might damage it, and you don't want any of that. So the brake pads are already just falling out of this thing. That's the one brake pad. Now, You want to leave this brake pad in here because I'm going to show you a little trick. All right guys, as I was saying, I got my caliper just sitting up here. You know, you definitely don't want it to fall, but here's the trick I was going to show you. What you need to do is get a C-clamp that has a big enough opening to fit from the brake pad to the back of the caliper. What you want to do is put that C-clamp over top, and you want to leave the brake pad intact, preferably the old one so you don't damage the new one. What you're looking to do now is compress it. You want to tighten the clamp, make sure nothing's binding up, make sure it's going easy because it shouldn't have much resistance. And you're compressing that brake pad. You're compressing the piston cylinders is what you're doing on the caliper. All right, as I was saying, the reason you want to compress those pistons back is so that you can get your new pads on easier without having to fight it. You don't have to bleed anything, you don't have to let any fluid out. You just compress it back, and what that does is pushing that brake fluid, that hydraulic fluid, back up into the reservoir. So as you can see, these are the old ones. You see how much material is gone off of that compared to a new one. So if you just took these out without compressing it, you'll never fit these back in. And you don't need any special tools. You don't need to buy a brake caliper compressing tool. A C-clamp has worked for me, and I've done this on not just this van, but like every car I've ever owned. It works great. So the next thing you want to do is pull this rear pad that you just used to compress. Just want to work that out. So these are your old pads right here. You've got a pair of brand new ones. All right, once your brake pads are out, your new brake pads should have come with some of these new anti-vibration clips, is what they're called. Mine, for some reason, only came with one. I guess they left it out when they packaged the brake pads. So we're gonna end up reusing one of these. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just dirty. But I'm gonna replace the one I just took out with a new one. Make sure you observe the orientation of which it came out, which it goes just like that. You just slip that back down in there. And I use the word slip loosely. And there it is. That clip is back in there. Very important you put them in there or leave the old ones in. Now we're going to take our brake pads, and it has these little ears on them, and they slide right into those clips that we just put in. Just like that. One pad. All right, we got our first pad in. Here we go with the second. And those little ears go into the clips, those anti-vibration clips, just like that. All right, the new pads are installed in the caliper. And at this point, if you were going to be changing your rotors, now would be a good time to do that. So all you got to do is pull the old rotor off. Now this happens to be the rear. And then you would take your new rotor, slide it right back over. And if it's, for some reason, if there's rust here or there's any kind of corrosion or buildup, all you'd probably have to do is take a soft hammer and just tap around it, and it would probably loosen up. All right, now that we're ready to put our caliper back on, you want to make sure that you haven't twisted the caliper around to make the brake line twist. So we're good there. And then we're just gonna put it right back how it was. It fits over just perfect. Go ahead and get your top bolt started. All it needs to go is in a few threads. Now it can't fall. Go ahead and take your 1/2-inch wrench with your 18mm socket on it. Make them nice and snug. All right, so I just looked online, quick search, and apparently these bolts are supposed to be torqued to somewhere in the neighborhood of 221 foot-pounds. Now I do happen to have a torque wrench. It's set to 221 foot-pounds. I'll tell you, it ain't easy. What I did was I got it in here like this. I've got my leg under my forearm, and I'm just gonna go ahead and that's 221 foot-pounds right there, guys. It's not easy to get to achieve that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottom one the same way, but I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you guys. I took this axle out of here almost 2 years ago and switched it out for a factory axle that has an Eaton locker in the differential, so that way when one tire starts to spin, they lock up and they both spin to get me out of mud or whatever. And I had these off of, you know, obviously, and I'll tell you how I did it last time. I didn't torque them. You get yourself a wrench like this, a closed end box wrench, put it right on there. Take a hammer, and actually I torqued it to 221 foot-pounds with that torque wrench, but I can feel the bolt going further hitting it. So I put those bolts on here almost 2 years ago with that method, with just banging them on with a hammer and a open-end box wrench, closed-end wrench, and they have never budged since. So you can do it with a torque wrench, you can do it like that. Just make sure that they're tight. Those bolts are pretty fat, pretty stout bolts. I doubt you're gonna break them off unless you get too crazy and you're sitting there smashing it with a sledgehammer or something, which I wouldn't recommend. But that's how they put them back on. That's 221 foot-pounds. Hear the click? The bottom one's easier than the top. All right, now it's all reassembled. You got your brake pads, you got your anti-vibration clips, you got your bolts tight, however you decide to go about making them tight. Now what you're going to want to do is you want to start this thing up. And your brake pedal is going to go to the floor pretty much. It's going to feel very soft at first because all that's happening is every time you push it, it's pumping that fluid back down and closing those pistons back. Because under normal circumstances, when it's just sitting there and you're not pushing the brake pedal and everything's how it should be, the pads are very close, if not just touching the rotor. So they're ready to go. As soon as you hit that brake pedal, they're touching, and you got pressure building up behind them in the system. So, like I said, we're gonna start it up. And we're just gonna make sure everything's good, there's no leaks. Like I said, the brake pedal is gonna be soft at first. That's all it took. About 3 pumps and it feels normal. Come back here, no leaks, everything looks good. Ready to go. So Putting your wheels back on is a fairly straightforward process. In this case, I've got 8 lug rims. Any 2500 or 3500 is going to have these. Make sure you start your lug nuts by finger. Don't just send it on there with a wrench or with an impact, because if it gets cross-threaded, you're going to end up having to switch out studs. Something else I like to do, or that I did a long time ago, is I put a little bit of copper anti-seize on the threads. You just put a little dab in there, take the brush, make sure you got a decent amount inside the lug nut, and that way it provides lubrication for when you torque them back on. It'll prevent it from corroding, and it'll also prevent it from corroding, like I just said, and making it impossible to unscrew them if they're on there for any substantial amount of time before you take them off again. So I've had that on there for several years, that copper anti-seize, and it's been great. It's still on there. I don't have to ever reapply it. It's just always in the threads. So this one's a little bit sticky, but it's threading on. It's not crossed. Well, it was. See, it started to cross. I unscrewed it, put it back. That's why you want to make sure you do it with your fingertips first. Now I'm not just going to send it with this either. I'm going to put this on here just till it touches, and you're going to want to go crosshatch pattern, the one completely opposite, just until it touches. Just touches. So now that they've all been seated, the rim is tight, there's no play, I'm going to go ahead and just give it a couple little with the impact. This isn't final, because we're going to torque them down right. Especially if you're running lug-centric bolts, which we have. The stock rims on most of these trucks and vans have a hub-centric rim, where there's a lip behind this cap that you can't see. There's a lip that fits perfectly inside of the hole of the rim. So when you put the rim on, the wheel and tire, when you bolt these down, it's perfectly centered. This does not have a hub-centric hole. It's actually bigger than that lip in there, so it's relying on these lug nuts to center the wheel. That's why we want to make sure we go around and do it in a crosshatch pattern and do it slow. Anyways, the point of the story is you want to make sure you properly torque your lug nuts down to whatever specification it says in the driver's manual, or with whatever wheels and tires you might have on your rig. We're good. All of them are tight, torqued down. We're going to go ahead and let it back down. All right, that's going to do it. Everything's put back together. Now the process for all the other wheels and tires on these vans is essentially the exact same thing. 2 bolts, take off the caliper, compress your pistons, take out the old, put in the new, put it back together reverse order, you're good to go. Make sure the van or the truck or whatever you're working on is supported good before you climb underneath it or work on it. And that's all I got. So if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, I'm Jason. This is Tennessee Mountain Homestead. We'll see you on the next one.